You put that on the table to tempt me, didn't you?
What? What did I put on the table?
He's so good, that's one.
All right, good evening. Brenda, do we have a quorum?
Let me check. I believe we are, I believe Director Stanley is,
She may be late. She contacted me, so she may not be here.
okay, so we're just waiting for Director Cepeda.
Okay, let me know.
Okay.
Love the flag, VP Sedif.
I knew you'd appreciate it. Since I can't go there, I figured I'd bring it to me.
Hey, there you go. I like that thinking.
Okay.
President Alvarado, you do have a quorum. I don't see Director Cepeda yet, but you do have a quorum. I just want to let you know.
Okay, thank you. We're going to wait a couple of more minutes for Director Cepeda, and then we'll get started. I'll let you know.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Director Cepeda is here.
All right, sounds good. So we'll call this meeting to order. It's about 6:33, I think. Can you do roll call, please?
Thank you. President Alvarado,
I am here.
Vice President Seta?
She's here.
Okay. Director Weiner?
Here.
And Director Stanley will be late. And Director Cepeda?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, next item.
Next item is Pledge of Allegiance or observation of moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, please.
Thanks. Next item is agenda item 2, approval of the agenda.
Okay, what is the will of the body?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Second, please.
I would second.
I have, hello.
Sorry.
Go ahead, discussion. Director
I have
Lee.
a couple of items that I would like to discuss.
Okay,
First, I would like to congratulate President-elect Cheryl Sutta. I would like President Alvarado to explain what process the board followed to select Director Sutta to serve as board president as announced in the last meeting. The current board policy is to have an election as described in item 6B, conduct an election for the president and vice president of the West County Wastewater District Board of Directors. I move we change the item to read more accurately, installation of the president-elect and election of the vice president of West County Wastewater Board of Directors.
okay, thank you, Director Weiner. Any motion, any second Director Weiner's motion? Seeing none, the item fails. The item's been moved and seconded. Approval of agenda. Next,
Wait. I have one more item.
go ahead, Director Weiner.
I'd like to pull item 5D from the consent calendar. The comprehensive annual financial report for the purpose of commending district staff for their efforts in once again maintaining the highest standards of financial reporting and passing another audit that did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that were considered to be material weaknesses. The accomplishment should not go unremarked in the approval of the consent calendar.
Okay, do I have a second for Director Weiner's motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Thank you. And I just want to confirm that that's actually 5C. It's not 5D. So we'll go ahead and move that to action.
5C?
That's 5C.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Seta?
Yes, but I like Director Weiner's remarks.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Thank you. And I don't believe we have Director Stanley in yet. So we'll go to Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, so let's go back to the motion of approving the consent calendar. I'm sorry, not the consent calendar, the agenda. Please take the roll. Without, by moving 5C to the action calendar.
Okay. We'll start with President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Seta? Thank you. Director Weiner?
Yes.
We don't have Director Stanley, so Director Cepeda?
I'm here.
Oh, you are. Okay, thank you. Director Stanley?
Yes.
Thank you. And Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is public comments, items not on the agenda. I did not receive any public comments prior to the board meeting. However, I do see some attendees. So if there are any attendees that have not already submitted their public comments for specific agenda items, but if they would like to speak on something that's not on the agenda, if they can raise their hand so that I can unmute them. Seeing no hands raised. Oh, actually, I do see one hand raised here.
Okay,
And-
call on the person.
And his name is Eric Haynes. Mr. Haynes, you have been muted.
Hi, my name's Eric Haynes, and the reason I raised my hand was because I did submit an email to make comments on an agenda item.
Yes, you did receive.
Perfect.
Yes. When we get to the item, I will go ahead and read it for record.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is swearing in of newly re-elected directors. Ceremonial swearing in and recognition.
Okay. Thank you. Madam General Manager?
Thank you. I think actually our clerk is going to be presenting the information.
All right. Brenda?
Okay, thank you, President Alvarado. So this election was historic because it was the first election in which West County wastewater elected directors was based on divisions instead of at-large elections. So just want to let everyone know, for the public, before the oath of office is administered, I'd like to congratulate Directors Stanley in District 3, Directors Weiner in Division 4, and Director Cepeda in Division 1 on winning the re-election in their respective divisions. And I will, I believe next up too, we'll go ahead and administer the oaths tonight as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe we have Vice President to do that.
Mr. President, are we able to mute? There appears to be some kind of background noise coming from someone. Are we able to mute those not speaking?
Yes.
Okay, VP Sutter, are you going to administer the oath?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Are all three of you ready?
Ready?
All right. I repeat your name.
Harry Weiner.
This is a Canada.
Director Stanley. She's on mute. I think we muted her. Brenda, can we unmute Director Stanley?
I'm asking her to unmute. She has not unmuted her microphone. Director Stanley, can you hear us?
One moment, sirs. Weiner and Cepeda.
Director Stanley, are you there?
Director Stanley, are you there? Doesn't appear she is, so let's move on.
Okay, so let's continue with Director Weiner and Director Cepeda. Okay, right hand, please. I repeat your name.
I, Harry Weiner,
Do solemnly swear, or you may affirm,
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Director Weiner, on your re-election for your second term, and congratulations, Director Zepeda, on your election to the board for your first term.
Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations, Director Weiner, and yeah, congratulations. And Director
Thank
Stanley.
you and Director Stanley.
Yeah, I want to thank all three of you, and congratulations on your reelection. I'm going to call on Director Cepeda. Do you want to make any remarks?
It has been a pleasure serving this board so far as appointed, and I look forward to continuing serving this board together as an elected for our community. And I hope that, again, we continue working together, and I'm excited to see what we can do together. So thank you so much for the opportunity, everyone.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Director Weiner,
I have a short statement.
go right ahead.
I would like to thank the voters of District 4 for 6,449 out of 8,960 votes cast, or 72% of the vote. I would like to thank Geraldine Gonzalez, my campaign manager, without whom my campaign would not have been as successful. I would like to thank all the volunteers from Local 1 who helped with the distribution of my campaign material, especially Thomas Johnson, who covered the home precinct of my opponent with campaign flyers. Thank you, Local 1, for my earliest endorsement, which gave me the confidence to work for victory. A shout out to all those who endorsed me and supported my campaign, notably the Democratic Party of Contra Costa County and the Contra Costa Building and Construction Trade Council. Thank you cards are on the way to all of you. I would like to also thank my wife Anita for her support, even though she does not want to be the wife of a politician. Finally, I would like to dedicate my second term as director of the West County Wastewater Board to the late Leonard Mack McNeil and the late Mark Dennis, whose influence led to my brief political career such that it is.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Stanley. Director Stanley. Doesn't appear that Director Stanley is with us. All right, next item, please.
Thank you. Let me just get back to my screen here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay. Thank you. Next item is agenda item 5, consent calendar. That's agenda items 5A through C for the consent calendar.
Is that 6 or 5?
That is 5A through C.
Brenda, C was moved to action.
It's 5A and B, excuse me.
Yeah.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the consent calendars, item 5A and 5B, please?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda calendars A and B.
Can I get a second?
Then I will second it.
All right, discussion on this item? If not, please take the roll.
Thank you, President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Setta.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
And Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is the action calendar. Item 6A, authorize the general manager to execute the project stabilization labor agreement. Mr. President, I do have 10 public comments that I did receive for this item.
Okay. Let's make the public comments 3 minutes or less, please.
Okay, let me go ahead.
Mr. President, may I address the board? Are we able to, because of the PLA, are we able to get a couple more minutes extra to the president of the labor, just so that way he can explain sort of his side? Because I know that we're going to be talking about both the staff provided document and the one that comes from labor. So I think that we should maybe allow them a couple more minutes to address the board on their document, more than 3 minutes.
Absolutely. Just realize that the president must go last, okay? And I reserve the right to step in and say you've gone overboard a little bit. But other than that, yes, I will allow it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yep. Brenda?
Okay, so the first public comment I have is from Eric D. Christian, and it says, West County Wastewater District Directors. Tonight you are being asked to vote on a discriminatory project labor agreement that unions have given nothing on and in which you gain nothing in return. You are doing this in the middle of a pandemic where your own staff says it might cost you more money. Why? Questions. 1. Unions want an evergreen clause that has a PLA go into perpetuity. You want a hard expiration date. Will you stand fast? 2. Why are you agreeing to a controversial PLA for 3 years in the first place instead of having it tried on a pilot project? 3. Unions are also failing to even be held accountable for the reporting back to you on the myriad of promises they are making regarding the PLA. Here's what staff writes. The Trades Council prefers to place the obligation for annual community benefits reporting on the contractor and employers, arguing that the contractor and employers have better access to the required information. The Trades Council and unions may be in a better position to provide annual aggregate information for the board's consideration in order to evaluate whether this agreement has been effective in promoting the community benefit goals. So in exchange for a monopoly, PLA unions do not have to give anything. Will the board stand firm here? 4. Has the board read the 22 master labor agreements, MLAs, you are being asked to sign on to and have union-free contractors be bound by? This PLA is about 5% of the total contract you are agreeing to. Have you read the other 95%? If not, why not? 5. In Section 9 of the PLA, any union-free worker who does happen to get work on the job must pay all of their benefit monies, approximately $23 per hour, to union trust funds they won't vest in, 5 to 10-year vesting requirements, and therefore is lost to them. This is wage theft. Why is this part of the PLA? 6. In Section 10 of the PLA, any young men and women who are members of a state-approved non-union apprentice program are excluded from working on any project covered by the PLA. Question, why would you have an explicitly discriminatory provision in your PLA? Do you support discrimination? 7, why do you have no protection for yourself should the PLA do what PLAs always do, which is reduce bidders and increase costs? Last night, the Chula Vista Elementary School District in San Diego County voted to reject all bids on a project and rebid that project free of their PLA because their PLA has such a clause in it. Question, why did staff not negotiate any such protection for you in this PLA? In the end, what you get in exchange for handing big labor special interests a monopoly on all work is the pledge of labor peace. Is that a threat, and has it been a problem? Quality workmanship, again, has that been a problem? I'll continue because it's just the rest of the paragraph. And local hire. What are your current local hire numbers, and how does the PLA help with this when 80% of local construction workers are union-free? This was not a negotiation, it was a giveaway. The board needs to vote no on this agreement and get back to the business of keeping alive a competitive marketplace for your projects in the middle of a pandemic where every dollar is. Next public comment is from Joseph Lubis. Good evening, Board President Alvarado and members of the West County Wastewater District Board of Directors. I have been a resident of West Contra Costa County my whole life, and I am disturbed that you are considering a project labor stabilization agreement. There are multiple local instances where PLAs have caused problems in Contra Costa County. More relevantly, the Pinole Hercules wastewater treatment plant expansion. A PLA project had these issues. Despite having 10 bidders pre-qualifying for the project and 8 bidders present for the mandatory job walk, there were only 2 bids that were received. The bids were $43 million and $49 million, which were 8 and 23% above the engineer's estimate of $39 million. Final completion date was delayed by 9 months. Final cost was $45 million, $6 million, and 15% above the engineer's estimate. Also, at Contra Costa College in San Pablo, the physical education and kinesiology complex has been behind schedule due to the need for further HVAC and site condition work. A budget modification was also added because of a new seismic scope. At Diablo Valley College, the physical education and kinesiology complex needed a new budget modification so that funding could continue. What happened was that $3.3 million went from the new academic complex project to this one. With these issues highlighted, I am very concerned that, as a resident of this district, my water rates will skyrocket. With the COVID pandemic still raging, to add this additional burden upon the district's residents in this time of uncertainty is unconscionable. I urge the district to reject this misguided proposal. Next public comment is from Nicole Waring, and it reads, President Alvarado and West County Wastewater District Board of Directors. On behalf of the Associated Builders and Contractors Northern California Chapter, ABC NorCal, and its nearly 500 essential construction and construction-related firms representing 21,000 diverse merit shop construction workers and over 800 apprentices who perform public work jobs, we respectfully request you consider the following modifications to the proposed project stabilization agreement. The proposed PSA before you tonight contains numerous provisions disadvantageous to the local contracting community. The following modifications to the proposed language will allow you to maximize opportunities for all workers and apprentices and eliminate disparity in contracting during these unprecedented times. Article 1, project, raise the threshold to $10 million. It is our #1 priority that our state and federally approved apprentices have ample training opportunities to fulfill their required on-the-job training hours in order to graduate from our apprenticeship program and become journeymen. With only projects under $1 million available, this will significantly impact their ability to obtain these critical hours. Article 10, apprentices. Remove the word joint to allow for all state and federally approved apprentices to be used. As currently written, all apprentices must come from state-approved union programs, making it impossible for the men, women, and veteran apprentices who have chosen to enter state-approved merit shop, unilateral apprenticeship training programs in pursuit of a construction career from the opportunity to work and gain the invaluable on-the-job training experience that provides stability for them, their families, and their communities. Article 18, referrals. Allow the non-signatory contractor and employer to employ its own core workforce prior to the imposition of any requirement to hiring workers from the union hall. As currently written, when a non-union company is granted the contract, it is not able to use its own skilled and trained journey workers and apprentices, including minorities, veterans, and those employees formerly incarcerated. Instead, it must attempt to perform the work using workers sent by a union hall with no proof of their work history, experience, commitment to safety, or credentials, forcing the company to lay off its trained and proven crew that is committed to quality with a track record of performing work safely and ethically. Article 9, wages and benefits. As currently written, all employees must contribute to union health, welfare, and pension plans, regardless of whether or not the workers already have their own plans. Union plans also require long vesting periods, making it unlikely that the union worker will see the benefit of their contributions. Solution. President Alvarado, we're at 3 minutes, but can I continue on this one? Thank you. Solution. Allow non-signatory contractor and employer to compensate any workers for benefits in excess of the basic hourly wage in accordance with the applicable prevailing wage determination established by the Department of Industrial Relations pursuant to California Labor Code by either contributing to contractor and employer sponsored benefit plans on behalf of the worker or contributing to the union's established employee benefit plan on behalf of the worker. Compliance. Keep the language in Article 12 to ensure community benefit initiatives identified in Article 11 are being achieved. Amend the term of the contract to give the district the right to terminate the PSA by a majority vote of the board at any time and automatically terminate the PSA after 1 year. Finally, add language to give the district the right to suspend the PLA on a particular project or contract and rebid the project without a PLA if 1, the district does not receive 3 bids or proposals for that project or contract, or 2, all bids or proposals for that project or contract contract come in 20% or more above the budget for that project or contract. Thank you for your consideration. Next public comment comes from Bill Whitney. Good afternoon. Regarding item 6A on tonight's agenda, during public comment.
Linda?
Yes.
Who'll go last? Because I guess he wants to comment as well, so let's keep his comments as the last.
Okay. So the next item comes from Jolene Kramer. She would like to give her public comment personally.
Okay, she got 3 minutes.
I actually do not see her. So she can actually.
She's raising her hand. So if you see the 4 attendees raising their hands, she's one of them.
Okay. You have been unmuted.
Wonderful. Good evening, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Jolene Kramer. I represent the Contra Costa Building and Construction Trades Council. First and foremost, we very much appreciate the district's interest in adopting a Project Stabilization Labor Agreement, or a PSLA, with the building trades. A PSLA is an efficiency tool that creates value on public projects and establishes a partnership with local unions so that everyone is working toward the same goal of smart, high-quality, efficient construction. A PSLA will establish a partnership between you as the awarding body, your contractors, labor organizations in your area that represent working people, and the workers themselves. In this way, everyone is working toward the same goal of smart, high-quality, efficient construction. This is what has made PSLAs so increasingly common in the Bay Area and beyond. They are becoming more and more popular, and that is because they work. The comments that you just heard, I want to address briefly. These are from entities who represent business interests and not workers' interests. They are anti-labor, and I know you see through them, and I trust that you will ignore them. It's also important to note that PSLAs don't exclude any contractor from bidding. They are not discriminatory or anti-competitive. In fact, they are often an incentive for honest, high-quality contractors to bid, and they help working people. So last month, we began meeting with the district to negotiate a PSLA. We had amicable and productive negotiations, and the majority of items were tentatively agreed. In my opinion, we made real significant progress toward a comprehensive agreement on a short timeline with give and take on both sides. Unfortunately, as you know, we are stuck on 2 issues which we have brought to the district for consideration tonight. The first is the issue of duration. The council has proposed a 5-year term. The district is at a 3-year term. as well as a provision that renews the agreement after 5 years, but only if the agreement is not terminated or modified at that time by the district or the Trades Council. And this is really simply for administrative convenience, so that we do not inadvertently let the agreement lapse and we don't have to have another meeting like this if we don't want to. In negotiations, the district's attorney indicated that the district had a policy that would prevent that type of a renewal term, but we did review that policy, and in our view, it doesn't apply. That policy applies to service contracts through the purchasing department and would not apply to the PSLA. And even if the policy did apply, the PSLA would be in compliance with the policy because it does have a term and expiration date. The second issue relates to reporting on community benefit outcomes. As you know, the PSLA contains provisions relating to employment of military veterans and local area residents. It also has contracting requirements that target minority-owned and women-owned businesses, among other things. We, of course, wholeheartedly support those goals and have committed under the PSLA to maximize community outreach and refer veterans and local residents for work on district projects. But ultimately, the Trades Council and unions don't control who the contractors hire and employ on PSLA projects, and contractors are going to be required under the PSLA to request, dispatch, and employ workers who are consistent with the goals. And because the Building Trades Council is really not able to obtain data from contractors, in part because that data is often confidential or sensitive in nature, it really, to us, made much more sense for any reporting to come from the contractors, and the district is really best positioned to process and summarize that data in accordance with its own procurement policies. So I'm sure my time is up now, but I'll remain on the call in the event you have any questions. We do sincerely appreciate the district's consideration of the PSLA to promote the responsible use of public funds, improve project efficiency, create and sustain middle-class jobs, and give back to the community. And I thank you for your attention this evening.
Thank you. We'll go on to the next public comment I received, and that's from Anthony Vescuso, and I apologize if I am pronouncing it incorrectly. Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors. My name is Anthony Vescuso, and I represent hundreds of Contra Costa residents as a representative of the Heat and Frost Insulators, Local 16. My personal story is one like many others who successfully entered into building trades apprenticeship programs and made a career in the union construction trades. Because I am a union insulator, I have been able to raise my family on good middle-class wages with benefits, including family health care and retirement. Excuse me. This is something that is hard to come by in the non-union industry. I was trained and educated at a state certified apprenticeship program that covered in-depth safety training and craftsmanship at no cost to me. During the COVID pandemic, construction unions worked hand in hand with the county health officers to be the testing grounds for job site safety protocols and the rollout of COVID compliance for other industries. We, the unions, continue to monitor all jobs, union and non-union, to ensure the highest levels of safety and best practices are being followed to ensure every worker's safety. Many unions are here tonight to represent their members. Many who speak in opposition to a project labor agreement are here on the behalf of one person, perhaps a company owner who is only looking after the well-being of themselves. Project labor agreements uplift communities and people because they ensure that workers are highly skilled and trained, have steady jobs, sustainable family supporting incomes, safety protocols, and the peace of mind that comes when a worker knows that they are providing their families with quality health care benefits. I ask you to please vote for the people and vote to approve the project labor agreement. Thank you for your time. Next public comment is from Glenn Lovell. Good evening, Board Clerk. I am writing to submit a comment. Good evening, Board members. My name is Glenn Lovell, Political Coordinator for the Iron Workers Union Local 378, representing members across Contra Costa County. I am writing in support of the Contra Costa Building Trades Council's proposed Project Labor Stabilization Agreement. Project Labor Agreements, or PLAs, are established as effective agreements for generating quality, career-level employment for local residents while protecting the taxpayer. The skill levels of workers who have been through the world-class apprenticeship programs and the labor peace provisions all enable a project that is performed in a quality, safe manner while coming in on time and under budget. PLAs are an essential tool of equitable local workforce development while protecting the best interests of the taxpayer and the broader public in the delivery of essential infrastructure and the services that they subsequently provide. In conclusion, please support the Contra Costa Building Trades Council's proposed project labor stabilization agreements. Next public comment is coming from Eric Haynes, and it reads, my name is Eric C. Haynes. I am uncertain as to, for the record, I am a resident of Contra Costa County and a first-generation union member and an elected representative. I wanted to say that the reason I became a member of a union was so that I had representation that wouldn't fail me and would protect my rights and wages. A convenient lie told by those opposing a PLA is that they limit competition, and I would like to provide some clarity to that argument. The reason it may detour some contractors from bidding is plain and simply to avoid getting caught with wage theft issues. I've included a snapshot of projects that I personally monitored in Contra Costa County in 2017. I will make sure to send this to the board. I filed complaints on all 9 listed because I found wage theft violations in talking to employees. Please keep in mind that these are prevailing wage projects and are supposed to be free of this type of issue, as the opposition would argue. 7 cases resulted in fines and recovery of wages, while I only had specific dollar amounts on 3. The notes from the Labor Commissioner do state the other 4 did get settled. One of the cases was out of the time statute, and the remaining one was not prosecuted in spite of the violation of travel provisions required within the DIR wage schedules. Please keep in mind that these projects are less than 10% of the cases I won within Contra Costa, Alameda, and Solano counties in 2016 through 2017, and are all on public works, non-PLA, PSLA project that pay prevailing wage. I was able to find over $1 million in wage theft issues within a 2-year, with 2 projects alone totaling over $500,000. The only way to ensure this theft does not happen is to provide the protection to the workers via the PLA. This is the primary reason the non-union persons argue against PLAs, so they can pocket more money at the expense of the workers that are scared to speak up because they will lose their job. I encourage that if the public's money is going to be spent building projects, that everything possible is done to protect the workers. Please approve the CCC, BC, TC, PSLA, and reject any other formats. And the last public comment that I have written is from Brian Para, and it reads, hello, Board of West County Wastewater District. My name is Brian Para, and I am a business representative for Laborers Local 69, asbestos, lead, and mold laborers, as well as a Contra Costa County resident. I ask of you all tonight to vote yes on project labor agreements. And it also reads, PLAs are vital in sustaining livable wages and respective working conditions while promoting economic growth, as well as important relationships with developers in craft and trades. Thank you. And at this time, that's all I have in terms of emails that I received for public comment, but I do see some hands up in the attendee list.
Yep. So let's call on the people with their hands up one at a time. 3-minute limit, please.
Okay. And the next one is Jason Lindsay. Jason, you have been unmuted. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. My name is Jason Lindsay. I'm a business agent for Ironworkers Local 378. I hope that the board votes to enact a project labor agreement. In the event that you do approve the negotiation of a PSLA, I would hope that you are so inclined to adopt the tried and true building trades draft. Many entities, councils, and boards of various types use this 5-year model. I understand that there is a great concern for social justice to be implemented and observed in all projects. We share the same concerns. The good news is that it is my understanding that social justice elements can be written into procurement procedures. When you vote to use a PSLA, you're making an investment in your community. You're adopting a mechanism that will provide livable wages in this area. You are providing careers that have benefits that cost the workers $0 out of their pockets on Friday. That alone is a tremendous burden lifted, allowing for for a quality of life that's unparalleled by many other types of employment. You provide opportunities for veterans, youth, and traditionally underserved of this community. You provide a pathway to a good career and an opportunity to thrive. A good career is the best way to reduce recidivism. So the ABC is an association. My union is also an association. They pay dues, we pay dues. They are a union for business owners and represent their interests. We are a union that represents the interests of workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. And next I have on the list Troy Notrangelo. Troy, you have been unmuted. Troy, can you hear us?
Yes. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Hello, members of the council. My name is Troy Notrangelo. You have heard from my friend Eric Kristen tonight. I've known Eric for quite some time now, and in some ways we are a lot alike in the fact that we are both in the construction industry, but for very different reasons. I believe in the opportunity for local people to be able to make a livable wage that gives them the dignity to thrive within their communities while they make the companies they work for great profits also. All this being done by skilled and trained people that live here and take pride in what we do in our community. Instead, Eric stands for ABC, which represents 0.03% of construction companies in the U.S., and all they want is to lower standards and wages so their companies can make more profits off the backs of underpaid workers they represent. Eric brings so much negativity that the Antioch City Council asked him not to return unless he could find a more positive message to bring. I appreciate all that you do as a city council, and I know a lot of what you do as a council members goes unappreciated, but I guarantee that passing this PSLA will not go unappreciated by the members of this community. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Fernando Campos. Mr. Campos, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. Honorable members of the board, I want to thank you for allowing the laborers to speak tonight as we advocate in solidarity with our brothers and sisters.
Mr. Campos?
Yeah, my machine's acting up, sorry. My name is Fernando Campos. I'm a business rep with Labor 324. We have thousands of laborers residing in West County, and I can candidly tell you that nothing would make local folks more happy than to be able to work in the same area they live in. PSAs contain local hire provisions that afford this, and in turn will have local folks working locally, spending more of their money locally, creating a more positive economic impact in the local community. We also know they create jobs, but pathways to an actual career in the form of state-recognized apprenticeship programs. You've already heard many of my colleagues speak about the advantages. I just want to point out a few statistics. Apprenticeship programs are only great if your commitment to them is genuine and real. For example, according to the DIR, from 2014 to 2018, the laborers graduated 2,000 apprentices in Northern California alone. Yet during the same time period, the ABC graduated collectively 114 apprentices. You see, like my colleagues, like my brothers and sisters in the building trades, we have a commitment to our community because our members are the community. They live in the community, shop in the community, their children attend school in the community. We're not from SoCal, from out of the area, and we lead by example. At the end of the day, it comes down to facts and verifiable proof versus empty and long-winded rhetoric. Just look at the successful PLAs in Contra Costa County, in Alameda County, in San Francisco, all over the Bay Area. Thousands of workers can't be wrong, and dozens of elected leaders across the board through various agencies throughout the region can't be wrong either. I ask that you support the Building Trades PLA. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see some other hands raised. I don't know, and I believe they have spoken, but I'll just unmute them just in case.
Good evening, board. This is Nicole Gehring with Associated Builders and Contractors. We have been training apprentices for over 20 years and graduating apprentices and putting them in the community to work for over 20 years. For example, recently we have had a pre-apprenticeship program with Goodwill and a woman living in a tiny home. We are training her for a career in construction. She's not able to get into the union trades, and she would not be able to work on these projects. Also, take Eileen Gutierrez, for example, a homeless mother of 6 who found herself in bad times, who is now being trained by us and in our construction craft laborer program, who is now going to have opportunities in construction, but not if a PLA is put in place. These are the people that we are putting to work in your communities. We are giving people a hand up and upskilling people, and these people deserve to have an opportunity to work on these taxpayer-funded projects. I know it was mentioned earlier regarding the data that the unions did not want to present data on who was working on these projects. However, in fact, the PLA states that you must hire on this PLA, the proposed language, you must hire all workers from the union hiring halls. So they are the ones that are having the data of who is being hired. So why are they not wanting to present that data? Why would they not want to give that data of who is going to be working on this project? They should want to be working with you hand in hand. We are helping people. We are helping people elevate their lives and get careers in construction. And I would offer you that these people are not all available. They're not being accepted into the union programs. There are other people out there as well who deserve the same opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Bill Whitney. Mr. Whitney, you have been unmuted.
Last? Is there no more after him?
We do have, actually, we do have a guest named James.
All right, so let's take everybody, but Bill Whitney will be at the end.
Okay. Hi, Mr. James, you have been unmuted.
Yes, hello everyone. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good, thank you.
My name is James Bosser and I'm a business rep for Local 741 Painters and Tapers of Contra Costa County. The name says it all. We are the building trades, Contra Costa County. I come from this field of work and this is how I was able to live and support my family in Contra Costa County. We ask that you support this PLA. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Any more speakers?
Yes, thank you. And the last speaker we have is Mr. Bill Whitney.
Okay.
And Mr. Whitney, you have been unmuted.
Doesn't appear like he's unmuted.
There, we there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you. Good evening, board members. A pleasure to be with you tonight. I just wanted to say that Jolene and I appreciate the staff's time and their good faith efforts to negotiate a fair labor agreement. We do have some disagreements, which I'll get into in a second. I wanted to talk a little bit about diversity. And I pulled these numbers that I'm going to share with you off the DAS, which is the state's apprenticeship standards department, and give you an idea of where we're at in our apprenticeship programs. Our apprenticeship programs eclipse anything that the non-union is doing. We spend $1.6 billion annually across the country. In Contra Costa County, I'll give you some comparisons as far as percentages with what we are with the population in the county versus the Contra Costa Building Trades Council. So with regards to all of our apprentices across all of our crafts in Contra Costa County, the Hispanic population is 26%. Contra Costa Building Trades Council is at 47%. The black population in Contra Costa County is at 10%. We are at 12%. The white population is at 41%, and the Contra Costa Building Trades is at 35%. The Native American is 1%. We're at 1%. And the area where we need some work is on our Asian Pacific Island membership, and that is 19% in Contra Costa County, and we're at 3% to show you that obviously we need to do a little work there to get that number up. We're the only organization that I'm aware of that has a pre-apprenticeship program that not only is in the community colleges, but it's at Richmond Build, it's at Future Build in Pittsburgh, and it's in the county jail system. So to deal with recidivism. So we're actively working to do our part to find men and women that want to be part of a wonderful tradition, that want to get into the trades and be part of the culture that excuse me, that we have established to become our brothers and our sisters. Excuse me. We are the only organization that has a veterans program. It's called Helmets to Hard Hats. The ABC does not have that. So we have a veterans program where we go out and actively recruit veterans so that when they have served our country and they come out of the service, they have an opportunity to get into the trades. We are constantly upgrading our education and our training so that we have the best skilled and trained and safest workers in the world. And
Mr. Whitney, you have 10 seconds.
I beg your pardon?
If you can just wrap up.
He doesn't have 3 minutes. We voted to allow him to speak for longer.
He can speak at my discretion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have 35,000 members in Contra Costa County, and you know what? They live in the footprint of the West Contra Costa, West County Wastewater District, I should say. And they can live there because they're paid fair wages and benefits as opposed to what the non-union gets. The non-union does not have the ability to live in wonderful cities that you represent because their members cannot afford it. So we're training people, we're providing opportunities across the board, and we are providing them with income. And that income has a multiplier effect in your communities that is sometimes it's not really fully appreciated. In those jobs where they get wages, where do you think they spend their money? They spend their money locally. They spend it at local grocery stores, gas stations, clothing stores. They pay rent. They pay mortgages. It goes on and on and on. So the value of having a project labor agreement is an enormous community benefit. As mentioned, our ask is that you reject the staff proposed PLA and you approve the building trades PLA. As mentioned before, there are only 2 points of disagreement. I should point out that the PLAs have been in existence for about 25 years in Contra Costa County, and in that entire time, I don't think you can name one project labor agreement that is in a prevailing wage agency where they've filed a grievance, they've filed arbitration for arbitration hearing, they've canceled the agreement, or some elected official has stood up and said, I hate this agreement, it's not working. It is a unparalleled history of success across all types of public works agencies. We feel that with the proposals that we made, that you would have a very fair deal, and we'd be able to meet all of the concerns that you have. I think I'll stop here. I'm going to stick around if there's any questions, so I'll be happy to answer those. Thank you, Mr. President, for the extended time.
Thank you, Mr. Whitney. Any more speakers?
No, Mr. President, that is the end of public comment.
Okay, so now I'm going to open it up to the board, beginning with Director Weiner.
Yes, I would like to move that the board accept the union language for a 5-year automatically renewing quote-unquote evergreen duration. I understand this would require active termination as opposed to automatic expiration of the agreement, and I am in support.
Thank you. Next, Director Zepeda.
Yeah, point of order, was that a motion, or are we just taking comments at this time?
Just taking comments right now.
I'm sorry, I thought I meant to make a motion. I guess come back to me.
Yeah, we'll come back to Director Weiner. Director Weiner?
No questions at this time.
No questions or comments?
No questions or comments at this time, no. I want to hear from the staff too. Thank you.
Director Stanley?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So would I direct this question to Ms. Kay Phillips as far as contract questions?
Certainly.
Okay, so does the board have the authority to terminate this agreement at any time?
Currently, no, that language is not in the PLA. For the staff version that we had proposed, it was for a 3-year agreement in which 90 days before the end of the agreement, the parties would reconvene, see if the agreement, needed changes or modifications, and then move forward if necessary. What the Building and Trades Council has proposed is a 5-year agreement, which would automatically roll over, barring any active termination by either of the parties.
Okay, so would it be a simple thing to write in language that the board of directors may terminate the contract?
I would not call that a simple thing, no. We would have to negotiate that.
Well, what I'm getting at is that we have elections every 2 years, and the board could dramatically change its philosophy in 2 years' time versus a 5-year contract. So I guess that's something that I would be interested in. And so I'm putting that out there. I do absolutely support unions. I have seen it in benefits in my my own life with teaching an ex-husband, and the training and the skills, and certainly as a young married couple, we've certainly benefited from the wages and the benefits, and depended on that. I 100% support the PSLA. I would also support Director Weiner's up-and-coming motion to extend it to 5 years with some sort of terminology that allows for possible changes in the board makeup, that they could revisit this within a 5-year period. And that we, there was another thing, something about the reporting of who was hired to be put, use the language that the unions are recommending. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stanley. VP Sutter?
Yeah, I do have a few comments because, I was one of the people who was pushing these agreements. And while I continue to support it, what I don't support is this notion that unless we vote wholesale for the agreement that the Building and Trades put forth, that we are not supportive of unions. So I want to put that statement out right now. My husband is a longshoreman. He's been a longshoreman for almost 30 years. And we have toiled over these, and we've been pushing the staff to get this done for the last 2 years since I came on board. So that representation is not only not fair, it's a misnomer. I do not support any type of even pseudo evergreen clause. And I will say that, and I'm not going to agree to it. We don't need 5 years. We need to see how this is going, number one. And we say we put together that rule, and we need to stand by it. We say 3 years with 2 one-year options. This board and any subsequent board needs to have the ability to terminate or to revisit and renegotiate a deal, whatever is best for the community. If that means raising the floor from 1 million to 10 million, 5 million, or lowering the floor to 500,000, whatever is best for the community is what this board needs to be able to do. There were a couple other points that I challenge that were said tonight. And we brought these up before. That agreement that was put forth before us uses language like best efforts, not that you will do. We talked about this when this came before this board. And I made it perfectly clear. There was only one person on here who said something about it, who I agree and I appreciate it, Mr. Fernando Campos, about living in West County. It doesn't bother me about the strength of Contra Costa County. I want to know who lives and brings money and puts it back into this West County wastewater district. So if you're going to bring numbers, bring the numbers that affect this district. Local means local, means local, means West County district. That's the numbers that I'm most interested in. And I want to know that when we put together these community benefits for this district, it is for the people who live and breathe here. And a lot of times, the people do not live here. I don't mean on the outskirts of this district. I mean exactly here. I mean the numbers that you give, that you tell me about the building trades, that those numbers are going to affect the same demographics that's here. We can talk all day long about this. We've talked about this before when you came in here, about that we know that there's inherent discrimination against people of color, veterans, women, in the construction trades. And unless you can tell me that you're going to you said you were doing outreach. So I would like to make sure that that outreach plan is going to be something that is visible and monitored. It's part of this agreement. That's part of the community benefits that I would like to see. So that these numbers aren't something that you're only going to say, well, we don't have any control over it, only the ultimate hire. If we're going to say that that people have to be hired from your hall, then your hall should have its own intentional outreach plan to make sure that we have women who are being hired, we have Black, Latino, Indigenous people who are being hired, Asia Pac people who are being hired and trained who are coming out of that hall. Because if you're going to control the numbers that way, then you control the numbers that are coming out of the hall. You don't get to wipe your hands and say, well, we tried. It is not fair to cut out opportunities for people who live, work, eat, and who have to survive in the West County wastewater district area, and then cut the feet from underneath them for any opportunities. I am not going to vote for anything that are going to take business away from small businesses in this area. We said we were going to find a way to incorporate that in the agreement. And that is the agreement that the staff has put together. We should not be undermining, this board should not be undermining the opinions and the recommendations of this staff and our council. This council, Ms. Jerry K. Phillips, Ms. Claire Collins, has worked very diligently with our executive staff to give us the highest recommendations. And for us to not even consider that, because the union has come back and said they don't like it, is irresponsible. No, they do not deserve 5 years plus another automatic 5 years unless we or whoever comes after us has to make some decision. No, We don't even know how this is going to work. That's why we decided, and we spoke about this even in the planning committee. 3 years, we take another look back and see how it's going, and then we either decide we're going to make changes after those 3 years, or we move forward and we exercise the option for another year, and then after that year, we exercise another option. But we don't use the people's money irresponsibly in that way. We 5 years, automatic 5 years in that way for any contract. I don't care about somebody saying they way. It is not your decision to read it that way. It is this board's decision. And that is the decision we made when we put this together for every contract. That is fiscal responsibility of the people's money. I would like to hear from the staff and both attorneys on their read of what is being asked of us. Because what is being asked of us is different from what we agreed on when we agreed to go down this road. And as I said, I resent these implications that if we don't agree on this, we are not supporting unions, because we are the ones who've been pushing this from the very beginning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, VP Sudoff. And yes, I was intending to have staff comment on this, so I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to reserve my remarks for after staff presents. So, Lisa?
Thank you. Yes, we will actually keep it pretty brief, and I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy General Manager, Andrew Cloud, who has worked on this. But I did just want to open up and say the board did give staff direction in February to start working with the Trades Council to negotiate an agreement. We have been doing that, and the agreement presented to you this evening that we are recommending is a result of months of discussions. It also is reflective of the guidance and feedback we have received from the board through the planning committee and through the board itself. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, and he will walk through very briefly kind of some of the highlights of where we are at this point and our recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Good evening, President Alvarado and members of the board. I'm Andrew Cloud, the Deputy General Manager. And like Lisa stated, I'll be brief. Most of our points have been made by one or more people this evening already, but the board did request that staff negotiate a project labor agreement, and one of the things that we now have is a project stabilization labor agreement. And we did negotiate many clauses like that in many different parts of this agreement with the Trades Council, and I think we had a productive set of discussions and made a lot of changes in the document that we think work for us and work for the district and work for the Trades Council. It really has just come down to we've gotten very close, and we have these two issues which have been identified that we felt as staff we couldn't necessarily agree to for a couple of reasons, and I'll enumerate a couple of those, and we felt it was better to bring that to the board for discussion, consideration, and decision by the board on these particular issues. The two issues that we talked about was one was the duration of the agreement, and the second was on reporting by the unions on their efforts to meet the community benefits objectives. And our recommendation is consistent with input that we received from the board at previous meetings, including the board requesting the staff not enter into evergreen agreements. And that was our understanding from the board, is that was not something that staff was authorized to do. So if that's something that the board wants to do, we felt it imperative to bring it to the board for the board to make that decision. And if the board makes that decision, obviously that's the agreement that we'll implement. We also had and there's a couple of reasons why we didn't want to have an evergreen agreement as well, is that we felt that a 3-year agreement allowed us the opportunity to see if the agreement is actually working in the way that the board intended. And that is, are we getting the local hires, the local contractors, the quality work, the labor piece? And also to evaluate if it's had any other impacts. Cost of projects, number of contractors hired, number of local contractors bidding, administrative burden. These are all things that at a staff level we felt it prudent that if we enter into an agreement, we should evaluate the impact of that agreement, both the positive and potentially the negative. And maybe it's all positive, and that's what we find out. We'll report on what we find. But we want to take a look at that and be able to bring that back to the board. The second issue involves the union reporting on their efforts. In the agreement, it notes that the union will work on, quoted exactly, their utmost effort to meet the community benefit objectives, the 25% local hire. And that's what it is. It's an objective. It's not a binding. But what we're asking is to help provide that report to the board is that the union help us with that report. And they report to us on what were their efforts. The agreement actually calls for the union to exert some efforts to help this, and we're asking, can you annually report to us what efforts you did, what you did, and if you can provide us any data, that is better too. But we want to do that so that we can take a look and make sure, again, that the outcomes of the agreement are meeting the board's expectations. Those are the reasons why we brought these two issues to the board for consideration. And I believe our general counsel also has a few comments that she would like to add as well.
Claire, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. What I said was brilliant, and I can't repeat it now, so I'm so sorry that you've lost the opportunity to hear what I said. Mr. Clow said most of the things that I wanted to state. So just to be brief, we were intending, as Mr. Clow said, to respond to the concerns expressed by the board in its prior meetings. I did want to point out at least one error that was in the board packet. On page 133, there's a provision that says Article 7 reporting. It actually should be Section 11.5. And that provision is one of the two provisions in which there is a disagreement between our counterparty. So that would provide for reporting by all of the entities that have reporting or that have the community benefits obligations. And so again, we were intending to respond to the comments we had received previously, which Vice President Sudduth reiterated tonight, and with respect to essentially ensuring accountability for the obligations of the trade council, the unions, as well as the contractors, because we took very seriously her criticism of the language best efforts. And so even though it says utmost efforts here, we were intending to remedy her concerns about that in order to, or by putting in the accountability and reporting provisions. Similarly, our thinking along the lines that Mr. Clow said had to do with ensuring that we had an ability to look back and to trigger that look back after 3 years. The district has never been in a project labor agreement before or a project stabilization labor agreement, and therefore the district does not have experience with how effective it is at achieving the district's other objectives. And therefore, again, the staff was intending to conform to the statements made by members of the board of directors in the past at public meetings, and that's why the recommendation was made for a 3-year term with a look back and an opportunity to continue it at that time. I'm happy to answer any other questions if you have them.
Thank you, Attorney Collins. So I'm going to, is that it from the staff, by the way? Are we done? Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to speak on the matter now, then open it up one more time to the board members for their comments and then seek a motion. So first I want to say to everyone here, I am very pro-union. I've always been my entire life. But I also have a responsibility to the ratepayers who elected me in the West County. And I am very concerned about a 5-year agreement with no cancellation clause. I heard Director Stanley's comments, and I think it's not a bad comment either, that maybe we should look into a termination clause, putting it into this contract. Not sure if we have one. I didn't see it. But if we do, that's also reassuring. I think in a document this big, an issue this huge, an agreement this large for the district and for the people who are going to benefit from it, I think that if we're apart on 2 items, I think it's a win-win situation for everyone. So I strongly believe that 3 years is a good agreement with 1-year renewables, because like Attorney Collins mentioned, this is something new for the district. We've never done this before, and like I said, I'm for it, but I think there's some stuff that we have to look at. Project labor agreements are traditionally per project, so they both have a limited timeline and a limited scope. However, this agreement is intended to cover all projects over $1 million in perpetuity, potentially, since it renews automatically. We, as a board, have a limited term of contracts, generally up to 3 years, so we have an opportunity to evaluate how well the contracts are meeting the district's needs. And frankly, how is it working with our staff? Our staff and our attorney both worked very, very diligently on this, and I think we should heed their words. You know, we don't have anybody to please here, folks, except for the ratepayers who elected us. So we need to be cognizant of that. Do we really want to commit to an agreement that's 5 years with no termination clause? That's, you know, automatically renewed after 5 years? I don't think so. That's my personal opinion. Of course, I'm only one vote. We also have prioritized local, small business, historically disadvantaged or underrepresented businesses. And the one area I did not hear not once tonight was the LGBTQ community. You know, I've not heard that at all from anybody. So we need to be cognizant of that as well, because this is a big emerging community and they need to be represented as well. So, you know, we need to really be able to hold people to the feet to the fire who agree to this. You know, you just can't say, we don't have the, you know, we don't have the tools to do this. Well, I don't buy that. I'm sorry. You know, in the state where I would live previously, Connecticut, I was very familiar with PLAs, and they worked over there. They really did. They helped people, you know, especially disadvantaged folks that we're targeting here, get good jobs. And it really, really, really improved the community. I mean, I wish I had those reports to quote from right now, but obviously I don't. But all I want to say is that we need to be very careful about what we approve here tonight. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I also want you all to comment one more time. We're going to start again with Director Weiner.
Well, I guess I'm not making a motion. To the agreement duration, I understand that this would require active termination as opposed to automatic expiration of the agreement. And still I'm in support of the automatically renewing evergreen duration. The reporting of community benefits. The obligation for annual community benefits reporting, I accept the language that puts the obligation for annual community benefits reporting on the contractor employers. The entire PSA is designed to affect decisions by the contractor employers regarding wages, benefits, and personnel. The obligation in this document for furthering public goods like community benefits should also rest with them. All of our spending as a district comes from community funding, and the contractor employers who work for the district should, by extension, operate with our district's goals and principles. Those are my comments.
Director Weiner, you had a motion before. Would you like to make another motion?
I would like to move that we accept the language, the board accepts the union language for a 5-year automatically renewing evergreen duration.
All right, is there a discussion? Is there a motion on that?
I move.
That's the motion. So I'll second his motion.
Okay, now we're going to finish discussion. Director Cepeda.
Are we able to ask Mr. Whitney to answer some of the questions that we've been discussing from his point of view? Can he address the 5-year limit? I would like to know if there's other agencies around us that have it. What's the standard that they work with? Are we way off? Is this new? What is everybody else doing? If you can shed some light on that. And then also in regards to the reporting, what are other agencies that they have been able to do a PLA with? What are they doing in regards to their reporting? How does that happen? Are we the only agency asking for this? Is this new? If you can share some light on that. I don't know, Mr. President, I don't know if you'll allow that or not.
Absolutely, I will definitely allow it. Please unmute Mr. Whitney.
President Alvarado, can I add one thing before you move on to Mr. Whitney?
Go ahead.
Could I ask our general counsel to just answer or to comment on one of the items that Director Zepeda brought up, which is about, sort of who's using this agreement? Is this new? Can you speak to that in terms of the agreements for wastewater agencies?
We surveyed a number of wastewater agencies across the state, and with respect to their use of project labor agreements, and we did not. We only got back one piece of information with respect to a project-based project labor agreement for. I'm sorry?
I think it's just feedback. Go ahead.
Okay, project-based, not a program-based. So it was just focused on a single project, a single large project. But I did not get any feedback, at least with respect to specifically wastewater agencies that have engaged in this. And I think there's some reason for that, which is because we are agencies of very limited powers. So we don't have the same breadth of authority over economic development and social issues that, say, cities or counties have, which are more commonly the types of agencies we've seen that undertake broader programmatically based project stabilization agreements that apply to more than one project.
Okay, is that your answer? Is your answer complete, Attorney Collins?
Yes, unless you have any questions. I would like to mention one other thing, Mr. President, which is to the extent that the board is interested in the 5-year, the majority of the board is interested in the 5-year term. I just would like to mention the lack of clarity in connection with how the expiration works, because it says it expires after 5 years, but then it says it rolls over, and therefore there is no clear delineation of when the contract would end. And we would recommend placing more clarity in there that it expires unless, we would just recommend some more clarity in connection with that, because it's not clear if it expires automatically or if it moves directly into renewal.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Mr. Whitney, can you answer Director Cepeda's questions now?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mr. President. So with regards to the 5-year discussion, I think it's been mischaracterized that there's no termination opportunities for the wastewater board, because at the end of that 5-year period, it specifically calls for a meeting with the parties to talk about anything and everything, which would include termination. Now, we can add termination into that language, and then you would be able to have that discussion. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say that there's no termination opportunities or cancellation opportunities within the document that we're recommending. And if all it says is everybody's happy, then we're going to roll over to another 5-year period. That's basically all it's saying. So that's not sometimes it gets characterized as this dire sort of end of the world document that you're locked into for perpetuity, and that's not the case. So if you want to get out of it, you get out of it, and you say, we're not happy, Bill, you misrepresented what it was, and we're out of here, and that's fine. And then we go our separate ways. We've never had that we've never had that.
Hold on in a minute.
With regards to the reporting, everybody wants reporting. So do we. We have not said no, we don't want reporting. And I think there's some disconnect in there, and I don't know, maybe that's my fault for not having the words that can connect all the dots. But at the end of the day, when we try to get this reporting put together, the way I characterized it to a person today is it's like apples and oranges. So when we put this document together, there's two apples. There's the owner, the wastewater district, and the Contra Costa Community, Contra Costa Building Trades Council. Out here are a bunch of oranges, and those are contractors. Now, when the contractor signs the agreement to be bound, they transform magically into an apple. Now, they are part of that agreement, and that they then are obligated, committed, and legally required to meet all of those requirements. So you want a report, you're going to get a report. But I don't know, Mr. President, how they do it in Connecticut. I know some of the folks out there. My guess is that it probably came from the contractors themselves, or some collaboration with the contractors and the owners. The only people that I know that are tracking this information right at the moment in Contra Costa County is BART. And BART gets the information, the data from the contractors, and they put that into a spreadsheet. And then there's a joint labor management council that looks at the numbers and works on improving the social justice. And we actually will bring contractors in and dress them down if they're not hitting the numbers that we're looking to get. There is no other PLA that I'm aware of in Contra Costa County, and there are many, many, many of them. We've got 5-year deals with all the refineries. We've got cities, the county, school districts, and there's not a single one of them that has that type of reporting where the onus is put onto the building trades. And the reality is that, and I'm just going to be open here and share with you, the reality is that the building trades is myself and my executive assistant. And if we start doing all this reporting, it then creates a potential quagmire for the building trades across the county, because everybody else is going to look at that and say, hey, Bill, we want you to do reporting for us. And then all of a sudden, I've got literally thousands and thousands and thousands of bits and pieces of information that are rolling in. Let me give you an example. You run a job out there, and you're changing out a digester or whatever it is you're doing, and you bring in, just say, the laborers. The laborers start off with a 6-member crew, and then they go up to 10, and then they go to 14, then they drop down to 8, then they go back up to 14, and so this is a constantly changing. People get laid off, people can get fired, people get sick, people drag up and go to a different job, and so this information is just constantly changing. The only people that have all of that is the contractor themselves. They're the only ones that have all that data. I don't have any of that data. I have 27 affiliates that all have independent hiring halls, and there's no computer connection between me and all these affiliates. So that's I've answered that. Hopefully that gives you a little clearer picture on what we're doing. We're not opposed to reporting. We're supportive of reporting. And if there was a problem with a contract and you said, hey, this contractor is not giving data, I would immediately call the laborers, the plumbers, the iron workers, whoever it was, and I'd say, get this Yahoo in line and make sure that they get all this data squared away so that the report can be filed properly. That sort of stuff we can and we would do. So are there any other questions, board members, Cepeda?
No, thank you. You've addressed those. I saw that Ms. Collins had a question, so thank you, Mr. President. I'll let Ms. Collins answer that, and then I have one final question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitney.
Matt, you heard Mr. President?
Go right ahead.
Okay, if I may, I just wanted to share my screen because I think some of what we're talking about is really the devil's in the details. And so I just want to make sure, again, that I'm being transparent with your board. So I'm going to share my screen briefly. On the screen before you are the sections in question that relate to the reporting requirements. I'd like to draw the board's attention to section 11.4 in this clause, which states that the unions would exert their utmost efforts to recruit sufficient numbers of skilled craftspersons to fulfill the requirements of the contractors/employers. To the extent allowed by law and consistent with the union's hiring hall provisions, and as long as they possess the requisite skills and qualifications, residents of the local area, including journeymen and apprentices, shall be referred for project work covered by this agreement. The concerning language had to do with whether or not the unions were able to report on their efforts to comply with these obligations under the contract, which they are obligations stated in the contract, but again, pursuant to the feedback we received from Director Suddeth at the prior meetings, we were seeking to find a way to have reporting for that section. In addition, it's the unions and the contractors together that are coordinating in connection with the Helmets to Hard Hats program in sections 11.1 and 2. And so we were seeking under 11.5 to have an enforceable section that would require their reporting. We understand that some of the statistical information would have to be obtained from the contractor employers. However, in connection with the union's own efforts, the intent here was to make sure that these were not hollow and that they had some enforceability. So I just wanted to make sure that I had explained that to the board because that was one important issue that was intended to speak to Director Seto's concerns. The other concern I would just like to point out has, again, to do with the term. These are the edits from the Trades Council that I'm showing on the screen. The issue here has, again, to do with the 5-year expiration. This language says it shall expire 5 years from the effective date. Expiration means that it automatically terminates. Termination versus expiration. Expiration means it happens automatically. Termination means that there has to be an affirmative vote of the board in order to, or you could delegate it to the general manager to end the agreement. So this language says it shall expire, and then this language, which is the red lines from the Trades Council, says prior to each 5-year anniversary of the effective date, the district and the council shall meet to discuss proposed changes, if any, to the agreement. And then it says absent changes, the agreement will roll over for an additional 5 years. From my perspective, what that means is if we're unable to agree on a change, then it automatically rolls over. So if we are in a dispute in connection with any of the terms of the agreement or their enforcement or applicability, then it defaults to renewal. And from our perspective, that does not place the district in a effective position to be able to negotiate for changes if it determines after the initial term of the agreement that changes would be more beneficial to the district. So those are the reasons for our concerns and why we had an automatic expiration. The board can always vote to extend an agreement. But what we were trying to achieve here was a way to ensure that the board had that opportunity for a look back and to be able to negotiate, if necessary, with the Trades Council in order to meet any needs that arose or became apparent during the initial term. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Collins. Director Cepeda, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. If I may, at this time, make a friendly amendment to Director Wiener's motion, if Mr. President will allow me to. If I can make a friendly... Was that a yes, Mr. President?
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, thank you. The connection, Mike, I have a bad connection. So if we can add a termination language to that, to 18.3, as Mr. Whitney just mentioned during his comments, I think we can say that we will meet, and then somewhere, I don't remember verbatim, Ms. Collins, if you can bring it back up, or if we can add somewhere in there that we'll meet, and amongst the meeting, we can terminate if needed. Because I think that's what Mr. Whitney just mentioned, that that we should be able to do. So somewhere in there to discuss the district and the council should meet to discuss proposed changes, maybe comma termination or something or other somewhere, putting termination in there somewhere.
Our recommendation would be that we just delete this section, I'm sorry, this sentence, absent changes, it will roll over. It would expire 5 years, and then prior to each 5-year anniversary, the district and council could meet to discuss those proposed changes. If we delete this portion, then it gives you the opportunity to change and then renew with changes.
Yeah, but I think the motion from from Director Wiener, is this all the verbiage from the original verbiage from the council?
Yes, I'm using the version that the Trades Council sent to the directors last night.
Okay, so then, because he made a motion to move forward with what the council made, and then if Director Wiener would take it, my friendly amendment is to add somewhere in here the verbiage of termination, and then you're saying, would it give us the same outcome? So you're saying absent of changes, agreement will roll over. See, because I'm just going based on what Mr. Whitney just said, that if we add termination, so we meet to discuss any changes, including termination, and I think that gives us what we're looking for, because we'll meet if we need to terminate, and then we can terminate at that time, right? And that will be a change. If we're meeting to terminate, then that's a change, which then the next sentence will be null because we have met for changes. It's not absent changes. The agreement will not roll over for additional 5 years because we met to terminate.
May I suggest that perhaps we say here, absent the district's request for any changes? Because then it would be the district's request for changes that would put a pause on the process until we were able to negotiate a revision.
Sorry, tell me that again. You said, could we add absent?
So it would be absent the district's request for changes. So in this way, this would create the pause. So if the district requested changes, then it wouldn't automatically renew until we had negotiated those changes.
Okay, but would that give us still the termination? Because the word termination is still not in there, and I think that's what we were looking for.
Well, we could put a district's request for changes or termination.
Yeah, because I think the word termination is what the board might be looking for, somewhere that we can terminate if need be, because otherwise I think that still reads very similar to what we have. So the word termination, and again, I'm just using the same terminology that Mr. Whitney used, saying that we can use the word termination in this clause. And hopefully that might give enough information or enough change for the board to be able to vote on this. So I think, so again, if Director Reno would take that, basing it off of what Mr. Whitney just mentioned.
I agree to that change.
Okay. So that is
that it, Director Spada?
That is it for now, yeah. So that's if that's my friendly amendment there, and it looks like Director Reno will take my friendly amendment.
Yeah, it looks like it will. So let's move on to Director Stanley. Director Stanley? Any further comments, questions?
Mr. President, perhaps before Director Stanley speaks, I just want to ask a point of order. My understanding is that Director Wiener has made a motion that Director Zepeda seconded it subject to a friendly amendment that Director Wiener accepted. Is that the correct understanding of the other members of the board, in which case we do have a standing motion as amended to include the language that I showed on the screen?
That's
correct. That correct?
We have discussion, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Director Stanley. Looks like Director Stanley's having issues. We'll go back to her. Vice President Sutter?
Yes. Um, I'm I'm still not. I'm still having issues with. I'm going back to the 5 years plus. It still looks like the language says that it automatically is going to have 5 years unless we do something. It still doesn't meet. First of all, what the staff has told us about 3 years and then see how it goes. And then we go back to see how we're doing things. So I'm having this problem. It still amounts to a 10-year agreement. It doesn't amount to 5 years. He says, if we don't like it in 5 years, we have to do something rather than, even if you say it, even if we all agree, okay, we'll have a 5-year agreement. And if we want another 5 years, no. This says, unless we terminate, they automatically give 5 years. That's not what we agreed on. And that's not the kind of agreement we should be signing up for. And we still don't have a commitment on these outreach and making sure that there's accountability here. I still haven't heard that. I still haven't heard that our small businesses in the area are not going to be damaged by it. And there was a good point that President Alvarado brought up. He's not just, and he brought up the LGBTQ, but I'm thinking all of the businesses. Richmond especially, most of West County is small business. Most of the businesses that West County Wastewater does business with are small business. And we mentioned this before when Ms. Whitney came, is that they will not be harmed by this agreement. And I still haven't heard any reassurances from that. I still haven't heard any reassurances that in this agreement, that community benefit we would be reassured that those small businesses that are benefiting now from our contracts would not be harmed from this PSLA. And I still don't hear it. Use best efforts. All of that language does not say that you're not going to harm those small businesses because they can't necessarily come through the hall.
Mm-hmm.
Joe's plumbing business down the street in El Sobrani. John's electric company in San Pablo, who you might run to go get something really quick. They don't come through the hall. They are part of the fabric of West County Wastewater District. How are they not going to be harmed by this agreement? That's what I asked for. That's what I asked you to reassure us, that they're not coming through the hall, and don't tell me that they're not as skilled. There's a difference between wisdom and knowledge. They can get that skill, and they've been working in these communities for 30, 40, 50 years running their businesses. And he's already tough. So how are we going to make sure that those small businesses are not harmed by these agreements? And please stop telling me we're not responsible for it. He's ultimately the contractor who we give the agreement to. Because you keep numbers, you just rattled off a bunch of numbers to us earlier tonight. So you keep numbers. You can get those numbers just like the DIR gives the numbers. I do this all day, every day in my mortgage paying job. And I know that contractors and subcontractors have to report these numbers to the state. If you're asking us to do this deal, which it looks like the board will do, then part of that deal has to be your commitment to this district that you will do your part. And your part includes accountability to this community. You don't get to say, well, I don't have the bandwidth. Then we should not have the bandwidth to sign this deal. We sign this deal, you find the bandwidth. You find the ability to show us how many people are benefiting and in what categories, and that it is working. If that means you have to call every single contractor, then you call them. And you write it down on a piece of paper if you have to. I don't care. You'll figure it out. That's part of the deal. You don't get to excuse yourself from that part of the deal. That's part of it. We have to, all 5 of us have to be accountable to this community, and so do you. If we're going to do this, then every one of us needs to be on board with making sure that this is accountable to this community. That's why the word community benefits is in there. And I just don't see how you can do that when you just give people 5-10-year agreements. There's no incentive to do right by this community to them with no accountability afterwards if it's not going right. I don't see how switching that one sentence on Ms. Collins is Attorney Collins is showing us we can terminate. I would like the ability to terminate at any time that is not going right, not just after 5 years. Or maybe Attorney Phillips, you can tell us, is there, we had in the other agreement 90-day termination provision. Is that built into this agreement? If something is not going right, we should have the ability, this board, by majority vote, should be able at any time, termination for convenience, termination for breach, those type of standard provisions should be in this agreement. We should not be hooked on for 5 years, 10, whatever. Termination for breach, termination for convenience, termination for lack of funding, whatever should be built into this agreement. Is that there?
We do not have a termination. We do not have an explicit termination for cause section, and so therefore a termination would require or would result in the union or with the counter parties suspending their counter performance. So their agreement is to not strike, among other things, and they could suspend that. We do not have an explicit termination provision, but that could be written in.
Yeah, board members, every agreement that I've ever seen has termination for at the board's discretion, and it's had some kind of provision in there for the board to be able to terminate. And we have to have that type of discretion. We have to. And Attorney Phillips, Attorney Collins, this is your domain. I know that was the recommendation in the other agreement, but this is your domain.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. Let's move on to Director Stanley. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. A question to our general manager. Lisa, don't we advertise on our website jobs that anybody can bid on?
Are you talking about projects that we put out to bid?
Yeah.
We do advertise those on our website, yes, and we also send those out to various services that will put them out, yes.
Okay, so in theory, a small business could just keep track of our website and know when there's projects to bid on. Or if it's a small job, that would be covered under the recent CUPCA thing that we approved.
Well, this agreement would only kick in with projects over $1 million, so it would not apply to all projects. It would only apply to those that meet the threshold in the agreement.
Yes, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, one, that local employers have an opportunity to find out about possible projects to bid on if they're so inclined, because we put it on our website. And if we had small jobs that came up, you are able, via the agreement that we recently gave you authority to do under CUPCA, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, to hire people to do small jobs. Is that correct?
Lisa, can I add?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Director Stanley, we would still bid out a job using the public contracting law. If the job is, say, it looks like the engineer's estimate is a $550,000 job or a $100,000 job, we would bid that out, and the project labor agreement would not apply because it would be below the threshold of $1 million. So this agreement only applies above that threshold. And so we would either use the procedures available to us through the CUPCA, which is the which mainly would allow us to negotiate some maintenance contracts is the most important element of that, but also some smaller public works construction contracts. It just changes the bidding process a little bit. It's a little bit more informal. But for any project, in the range of, say, $200,000 and up, we would still use the public contracting code. It just wouldn't be subject to the PLA unless it exceeded the threshold of $1 million.
Okay, and then thank you, Andrew. And Lisa, going back to you for just a second, when we get these public comments, can we get them forwarded to us prior to meetings so that we have a minute to read them before, if possible?
Let me check. I mean, if we don't always get them in advance. So let me get back to you on that. I mean, we'll do our best to make sure that the board can get that information in advance.
Thank you. And Claire, may I make I'm sorry. Go ahead, Claire.
I'm sorry, Director Stanley. I just wanted to make one clarification, if I may. I just wanted to be clear, sort of two places, I think, on the smaller contractors to be aware of. The first one is that a contractor or subcontractor who is involved in a project that's over $1 million under this agreement, and essentially under Section 2.5, is required to ultimately become bound under this agreement. That's what we're agreeing to with the unions. And so by extension, they'll be a part of the project labor agreement approach. But the second aspect is that part of Section 11, which deals with the community benefits, is that smaller businesses would be actively recruited to be subcontractors. And that's where there's also a hook for smaller businesses that may not have the wherewithal to do, a $10 or $20 million project. They may have the ability to be subcontractors on a bigger project. That comes through the community benefit portion under Section 11. And so that's where that report back by the contractors would be appropriate. The report back that was originally requested by staff from the unions would be to consolidate that information and to report back on recruiting efforts or referral efforts for local residents. I just wanted to make sure that was clear in this context for you and the other members of the board.
Okay, so I have two short questions for you, Claire. If the language that we were just talking about, somewhere around the 3-year mark that we start conversations, doesn't that kind of doesn't that sort of address Vice President Suttis' concerns about 5 years? Because if we're starting to talk about things at the 3-year mark, in reality, we're not waiting until the end of 5 years. We're actually talking about it at the 3-year mark. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, there's no, under the language that was subject to the friendly amendment by Director Zepeda that I put up on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, theoretically we could start on day one, asking questions about it, I guess. There's nothing here that triggers anything at a 3-year mark. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, Director Stanley. I'm sorry.
Well, one of the things that, some of the housekeeping things that we started a few years ago was having, being aware of dates in our scheduling of stuff. And so if we agree to this at somewhere around the 3-year mark that we start talking about it, because we know how long it takes for a board. It's kind of like moving a carrier ship out at sea. It takes a long time to turn it around. So if we have plugged into our schedule that somewhere around the 3-year mark that we're going to at least bring the subject up, then as a responsible board, we should be talking about it at the 3-year mark, and if there's problems, we can address it at that time. And so it's not really 5 years, and as you said, we could bring it up anytime we want to. So some of that onus would be on us, if I'm not correct. And also, if there's a breach, such as the Labor Council isn't doing what they say they're going to do, couldn't we terminate also?
For cause, you always could. I mean, I think the issue here is that the obligations of the Trades Council and the unions under this agreement are primarily to not strike.
Okay.
So the only opportunity that would arise for us to terminate for breach would be in the event of a strike.
Okay.
And I don't know how likely that is to occur, but I'm not aware that any strikes have occurred at West County on any of our projects. But I don't know.
Okay. Okay. And then, Mr. Whitney, if I can address a question to you, sir. I very much appreciate it that it's just you and an assistant at the Labor Council, or Building Trades. Is it possible to create a simple form that is attached to contracts that is requesting that the contractors give us some reporting as to what kind of personnel they have hired at reasonable intervals, so that we get a picture of, whatever categories it is that we're interested in, so that we can see how it's working out. Can't we make that a simple thing and an easy thing, and maybe Miss Kay Phillips, you'll jump in here too. Can't that just be a very easy thing, not an onerous thing to do, and put it off on the contractors?
Brenda, before you unmute Mr. Whitney, please just answer the question that Director Stanley has posed to you, and do not interject any other thoughts, as this meeting is going way over and I want to get on to the next item. Brenda, please unmute him.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I understand it, your question, Director Stanley, you're saying, can there be a form that is created that I guess the contractors would have, that they would fill in? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, something very easy, very simple, that, maybe every 6 months or whatever, they give us some idea of what kind of categories they have people employed.
Well, you can think about that. I think that one of the things that you have the ability to control is your bid document and your construction documents that are controlled by the owner, by you, the board, and that you can put those types of things in there. But how we might be able to help on that, I'd be open to talking about how we can try to get those people to fill that information in, or to direct that information to whoever you'd want it directed to at the wastewater administration office. If I understand your question correctly, I hope I'm answering it correctly. Okay.
Yeah. So couldn't we Miss Kay Phillips, can't we just put some sort of verbiage like that into our contract, so that the onus isn't on the building trades people, rather on the contractors?
Yeah, well, we do also do a markup meetings, pre-job meetings. So when you select your general contractor, and then the general contractor has all their subs that are working under them, and then there's the second and third and fourth tier subs that are there, they come and they do what we call assign the work. So we could, that's one interface where we could provide them with this information, this sheet, and get them to sign and acknowledge they got a copy or something like that, and hand that to them, and then they could forward that information on to the wastewater district. But again, it can also be in your contract documents or your bid documents, and I'm not trying to insert myself into your business. I'm just saying that that's an opportunity for you to get some of what I think you're asking for, Director Stanley.
No, that makes sense.
Whitney, I think that question was directed to Kay Phillips. So we're going to let Kay answer the question. And Director Stanley, we need to move on. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just to answer your question, Director Stanley, that's certainly something that we can explore and discuss with the trade unions. It wasn't originally a focus of our negotiations, but we can certainly do so and figure out something that would work for both parties.
And I could add that Section 11.4 and ultimately 11.5 would have required the contractor employers to have some reporting. Again, their reporting is their obligations are a little bit different than what the union's obligations are. And so we were trying to find a way for both the contractor employers to do their part on reporting as well as the union. And that was, I think, the disconnect. Just to be clear that the contractors would still have a reporting requirement independent of those of the union.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Collins.
President Alvarado, with your indulgence, I have one quick last question, please.
Go ahead.
I would like to know that if we have certain situations, such as we have right now with the NG people come up, that's doing something really specific for us and providing something, can we have those agreements in addition to this PSLA?
I'm happy to answer that question.
Please.
At least part of it, which is I want to make sure that the board is aware that we did write in an exception for the NG project itself, which is accepts out all of the O&M operations and maintenance aspects, and there's a mention of it in Addendum B. And then it would be a question, I guess, for the Trades Council in connection with, if there were alternative project delivery methods proposed in the future, if that would be subject to at least a reopener discussion. We can't necessarily predict all of the types of alternative project delivery methods that are possible.
I understand. I'm assuming that people will be open to discussion. I'm just making sure there's nothing that's going to preclude discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Wiener, you had your hand up?
Yes. Can we call the question?
Sure.
President?
Time for someone to do that. Thank you so much. All right, the question has been called. It's been seconded. We have a motion on the floor with a friendly amendment to it. I'm going to ask Attorney Collins to read that back since it was such a while ago.
Sure thing. So may I just clarify, may I just show it up on the screen? Would that be helpful?
Sure. Let's make it.
All right. So my understanding is the proposal, let me make sure I do this right. The proposal would be to, as we're showing on the screen, in 11, it would be to keep the language that was proposed by the unions in 11.5, providing that the contractors to provide the updated statistics. And then in section 18, I'll go down to that. It would provide for a 5-year term, and I'll just state it, prior to each 5-year anniversary of the effective date, the district and the council should meet to discuss proposed changes, if any, to the agreement. I'm sorry, this also includes a 5-year expiration here. So it'll expire 5 years after the effective date. Prior to each 5-year anniversary of the effective date, the district and council shall meet to discuss proposed changes, if any, to the agreement. Absent the district's request for changes or termination, the agreement will roll over for an additional 5 years.
All right, does that sound like the motion in the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Please take the roll, Brenda.
President Alvarado,
No.
Vice President Suddeth,
No.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
and Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Before we move on, I just want to say for the record that I primarily agreed with this agreement, but I could not agree to a 5-year term. Next item, please.
And before you move on, I have to say the same. And I've already stated for the record that the term is a problem for me and the lack of accountability is a problem for me. And I want it stated for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Okay, let's see here.
President Alvarado, could I ask that we take just a 5-minute break?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do that. That's a great idea. So we're going to be in recess for 5 minutes, okay? We'll be back at 8:45. Thank you very much. Director Stanley, is she here?
She's here.
All right, so let's call the meeting back to order. Next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is conduct an election for the president and vice president of the West County Wastewater District Board of Directors.
Okay, before we open up nominations, I'm going to hand it over.
Hang on. There's a couple things. I pulled item 5C.
Yeah, that's coming after this, Director Weiner.
Okay, and then the other issue is that we haven't discussed reporting of community benefits. Unless that language has been accepted from my motion, I thought there was another motion required.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but Attorney Collins, want to give him some clarity?
My understanding was we just voted to approve the contract, and so there is no discussion on the community benefits because the contract's been approved.
Yes, so that ship has sailed, Director Weiner.
I asked to pull that out, but you guys voted to approve it, remember?
Yeah, my motion was specific to the agreement duration.
No, I asked to pull the community benefits, and you guys agreed to approve the whole agreement.
Yeah, well, like I said, the ship has sailed. We already voted on that, so we need to move forward. Like I said,
all right, so I'm really still unclear on what Director Suddeth did. She asked to pull it, when, and I'm sorry I missed all that, and I thought I was paying close attention.
Yeah, it was never added to your motion, so the motion passed without.
Director Weiner, you made a motion to accept the agreement as proposed by the Trade Council, and Director Cepeda made a friendly amendment that included change to the term, and that's what you all voted on.
You're muted, Director Weiner. You're muted.
Yeah, I can't repeat the brilliant thing that I just said, but I will add that
that line was used already.
I know, that's why I'm using it. It's good, I'll steal it.
Good one, though.
It all worked out. It all worked out well, and thanks. But I thought I was confused there for a moment. But I'm glad it worked out as it did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lisa, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, President Alvarado. So I want to thank President Alvarado and Vice President Suddeth for their service for the last year serving as President and Vice President, and we would like to present you both with a certificate of recognition. Our district clerk can pull that up on the screen. And I'm supposed to be able to read that, but that does look a little small, even with my glasses. So,
Like me to read it?
could you please? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Certificate of recognition presented to David Alvarado. The West County Wastewater District staff would like to recognize you for serving as president of the board of directors during the term of January 15th, 2020 to December 16th, 2020. We appreciate all of your leadership and contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the certificate for Vice President Sudduth reads, Certificate of Recognition presented to Cheryl Sudduth. The West County Wastewater District staff would like to recognize you for serving as Vice President of the Board of Directors during the term of January 15th, 2020 to December 16th, 2020. And we also appreciate all of your leadership and contributions, Vice President Sudduth.
Thank you, VP Sudduth. Good work.
I would like to just add that you both served at a time that was very much unprecedented, and the board has, this has been a very challenging time for many reasons. So just for me personally, I want to thank you both for your leadership and your service in the last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before I open up the floor for nominations, I want to say a couple words. First, I want to thank you to the board for giving me the privilege of serving as your president for the last year. This has been a difficult year having to deal with this pandemic and all the unknowns associated with it, including a lot more, many other things that if I get into now, I'd be writing a book and it'd take me way too long. Next, I want to thank the staff for all their hard work in keeping us on point. The next year will be difficult, but I have faith that the next president and vice president of the board will be up for the task. I will not be going anywhere. As an elected board member, I will be here at least for 2 more years, and I'll be here to support our new leadership board team, our general manager, and her exceptional staff. It has been my pleasure to serve as president of West County Wastewater, and I hope I was able to steer us responsibly in these rough times. There is hope that this country will be out of this in the ensuing months. Hopefully. Cross your fingers and toes. I want to say congratulations to our incoming president and vice president, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I wish them Godspeed. I also wanted to thank and just mention that my wife was just sworn in as mayor of the city of San Pablo. She is the first Puerto Rican to serve in that capacity, male or female, so I'm extremely proud of her. And I ask that all of us if you live in San Pablo, give her your support. If you don't live in San Pablo, I ask to give her your support as well. Just, we need to encourage our leaders. May God bless America, and may God continue to bless all of us. Thank you. Now I'm going to open the floor. Oh, my bad. VP Sudduth, was there anything you wanted to say before we move on? You're muted. Did we lose you?
She got so excited, she left. There you go.
Well, all I want to say is the best part of 2020 for me, it's a hard year for everybody, but for me, the best part has been this. Can you see them?
They go in and out. They're disappearing.
They look like shoes.
But can you see? Can you see them?
Oh, yeah.
Can you see them?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so does anybody understand what this means?
No.
Yes, yes. For you, that you were able to walk in shoes and without wearing the boots.
Oh,
There you go. These different kind of boots. There's no Velcro. There's no Velcro.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
congratulations.
That is cool.
There's no Velcro, you guys. Look, they match. They match.
Good for
I
you.
know it's such a little thing to most people. Most people take it for granted. But for somebody who's been in that orthopedic, what do you call it? It's not called ortho booties, whatever you call that boots. For different versions of that boots for 3 years and dealing with my back, I have matching boots, you know. So anyway, it's a little thing, and
I'd
it's
say
just
that's probably one of 2 or 3 positive things that have come out of 2020.
thank,
Rare, very rare.
thank you. And I will tell you, and he's gonna be very surprised when I say it. But the other thing is he's been saying it all year. I take the moment of silence when we say the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, usually you say the Pledge of Allegiance or moment of silence. Board secretary says it, and every time we say that all year, Director Wiener says at the end when everybody says justice for all, he says as soon as possible, right?
Exactly.
And the last month, he has not said it. He has not said it. Everything's the election. I notice everything. I notice everything. He said after the election, he said at last.
We haven't gotten it yet, but
He's valued say at last after the election. So I
yeah,
just want to
I
say
haven't said it because we're not.
we're not there, but at least you stop saying as soon as possible. So there we go. And then I will say, you know,
We still have to do it.
we still have a lot to do, and we have a lot to do all the way around.
But we got rid of the Orange King of his own.
the Cheetos. But I will say that 2020, if nothing else, it has taught us a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think that's we were always taught that when we were younger, but now it has come into fruition, and it has taught us perspective. And that's, to me, is what the matching boots represent, is perspective. So thank you, and it's my pleasure to be able to. It's like marriage, you know. They tell you for good or for worse, better or for worse. We haven't been rich or poor, but better for worse, and I think it's good. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward. We got 2 more years, so you know.
Appreciate it. All right, I would now want to open up the nominations for President of the West County Wastewater District Board of Directors. I got to read this spiel, so just bear with me. A director may be nominated by another director or be self-nominated. Once all nominations are closed, the board will vote on each nominee. Directors may only vote for one of the nominees. A nominee is elected upon receiving 3 or more votes. If no one receives 3 or more votes, nominees receiving no votes will be eliminated from the next round of voting, and voting rounds will continue until a nominee receives 3 or more votes. So rather than say, does the board have any nominees, I'm going to nominate Vice President Cheryl Sudduth as president. Any nominations? Oh, we have a second on the nomination.
The motion?
Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
I do. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. I'd like to nominate Director Harry Weiner.
Thank you.
Do we have any other nominations? And is there a second on Director Weiner?
Is a second required, Dave?
I believe it is. Clarity?
I'm looking at the named rules, or sorry, at the listed rules. Sorry, hold on a second. There is a require for a second, but you can second yourself.
All right, I second the nomination. I'd also have a question regarding polling members before votes outside of the board. Is that a Brown Act violation, or can I call my fellow board members and say, how are you planning to vote?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Must be for you, not for me.
You can't have a discussion outside of the board with multiple members that would create the existence of a meeting. So each of the directors may have bilateral discussions, but they cannot communicate the discussions of one member to a third board member.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of discussion. I was merely thinking of a question that says, are you a for or opposed without discussion? Is that a Brown Act violation, or is that perfectly legit?
With respect to this tonight, and there cannot be a pre-decisional discussion among three or more, among a quorum of the board.
So polling is not allowed. If one member, say I am interested to know what my fellow board members are thinking prior to the meeting, but I don't discuss the issue, I just ask, what are your plans? Or how do you plan on voting on issue A, B, or C? Does that constitute a discussion?
If it's a bilateral discussion, between two members, it's okay, but you cannot transmit information from one director to a third director.
So I can ask three of my fellow board members their opinion before a meeting without having a discussion among them.
I'm hating having to give on-the-fly advice right now about this issue. Yes.
Back to me on that.
Yes, because again, the bilateral discussions are allowed, but it's the hub and spoke or daisy chain that's not allowed. So without more information, it's hard for me to answer it, and difficult given that we're about to take a vote on an election.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Thank you. Okay, so Brenda, let's take the roll. Each board member, please state your preference, Director Weiner or VP Suddiff. Correct? Attorney Collins?
The two nominees right now are Director Suddiff and Director Weiner, and so then we would need to call a vote for one first, and each member may only vote once.
Okay, so
there should be a call for votes for Director Suddiff and then a call for votes for Director Weiner with respect to, this is for the election for president of the board.
Correct. Okay, so let's do VP Suddiff first, and she was nominated first by me and seconded by Cepeda. So please take the roll, Brenda.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Suddiff?
I think she said yes.
I think I have to vote for me.
Yeah.
Director
You don't have to.
I don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to.
You're right.
Director Weiner?
No.
Director Hanley?
No.
And Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, I believe that's it. Congratulations on VP Suddiff becoming president. I'm going to hand you over the gavel very shortly. All right, I'm going to open the nominations now for vice president. And in the same token, I'm going to go out a picture and I'm going to nominate Cesar Cepeda, Director Cesar Cepeda, to be our new VP. Do I have a second?
Yes. I would like to second that motion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any more nominations for vice president?
I have a nomination, but I have a question first for Claire. Yes, doesn't our new policy say that a director has to be a chair of one of the committees to be eligible for
being nominated? Not to my knowledge.
Well, that was a policy about 3 policies ago.
Yes. He just has to,
do his policies.
yes, he just has to serve for at least 1 year. We changed the policy.
Which he has. Okay, is there any other nomination besides questions? Because it's not a question phase, it's a vote.
So I don't nominate Director Weiner.
Okay. I have a second for the nomination. Do I have a second? Okay, so there is no second. So let's take the vote on the one we have a first and a second for. Director Cesar Cepeda as Vice President Cesar Cepeda. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Sutta?
Por supuesto. Of course.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Stanley?
No.
And Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
It is with my extreme honor to welcome the new president of the West County Wastewater Board of Directors and also the first Puerto Rican woman, female, to serve in that capacity. So now we have our first general manager who is of Puerto Rican descent, and we have the mayor of Sao Paulo who's of Puerto Rican descent. So I think the Puerto Ricans are moving up. What do you think? Anyway, my pleasure to hand you over the gavel. It's been, like I said, a long year, and I'm looking forward just to listening.
Dave?
Yes.
Did you promote Director Sutta to the general manager?
I wasn't going to say anything.
General manager? No. President, sorry.
Okay, but
Never
I heard you say you promoted her to...
No.
Harry, I was trying to get paid.
Funny. Okay. President Sutta, it's all yours.
Oh, now? Right now?
Right now.
I think the policy says you stay on until the end of the meeting.
Exactly.
You can have.
They take over immediately. I spoke to Claire about this earlier today.
If I may, the policy does say that the president and vice president take their offices immediately upon election. However, President-elect Sutta, if you would like for former outgoing President Alvarado to remain the chair for the remainder of the meeting, you may so direct him.
So I believe you should finish out your last meeting, President Alvarado. I would.
Really?
Hey, I think it's
Next item.
If I may,
Yeah.
if outgoing President Alvarado wouldn't mind me recommending it, we did have one of the consent items pulled for action, and now would be the time for us to consider the CAFR, which Director Weiner had requested to be discussed on action.
Yes, and that was the next item coming up. I had already discussed that with Brenda. So, Brenda, next item, please.
Thank you. Next item is action item 8, excuse me, let me just get to it here. 6C, accept the comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR, for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020.
All right, so can I get a brief report on this?
So, President.
What comments?
I'm sorry. Yes, so in the sake of time, because we do also have a closed session following this, as well as some information items, I believe Director Weiner had asked to pull this item for the opportunity to acknowledge staff. If that is really the only issue and the only reason for it being pulled, I'm going to ask that we skip a presentation and just allow that, unless the board wants us to do a brief presentation. But
No, I think your edict is correct. Director Weiner, it's all yours.
All right. General Manager Malik Zadeh and Administrative Services Department Manager Justin Lavelle have the responsibility to maintain excellent financial controls and have served the district proud by maintaining a 21-year streak of excellence in reporting. In their letter of transmittal, they predict the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, GFOA, will make it 22 years in a row that the district will be awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Fingers crossed. They also commend all staff that assisted and contributed to the preparation of this report, especially the district's finance supervisor, Dean Prater. Congratulations all. I move we approve the item.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the item. Can I have a second, please?
Second the motion and also want to congratulate the staff.
Thank you. Item's been moved and seconded. Brenda, please take the roll.
President Sutton.
Second that. Yes.
Thank you. Vice President Cepeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Alvarado.
Yes.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
And Director Stanley.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please, and it's information reports, and I would urge the board to, well, not the board, but the staff, to make it quick and simple, please. We still have a lot of things to discuss.
So we only have one comment, and I will make it quick, but I'm going to ask our district clerk to pull something up for me quickly.
Okay.
So, as the board knows, we have created a new logo for the district, and I wanted to just quickly show you our implementation initiative. This is phase 1 and the changes we've been making. Brenda, if you could go to the next slide. I'm sorry, I don't have control over it. So our first phase of the rollout was to take the logo and change all of our letterhead, our forms, and our business cards. So you'll see just an example here of the new business cards. I'm sorry, I would love to make this go faster if I had control, but I don't. So Brenda, can you go to the next? I just wanted to show a couple of pictures of some of the things that we're rolling out. This is a picture of the logo on our hats. And the next one should be another picture of the logo on some of our jackets. And the next couple of slides I have are some of the vehicles which are rolling out. You'll see this. And I figured you probably are not doing a whole lot of driving around in the district, so I wanted to make sure you got a chance to see these if you're not out on the street seeing them. I did actually just see some of our trucks out on the street with the new logos, and it was really great. So we've got the trucks done, and we are now moving on to our signs. This is at the Hilltop office, and then we've got one here at the plant. I think on the next slide. So that is the one at the plant when you're inside, and then I think our last slide here, we have a picture of the new sign that is outside of the gate. I do want to just mention that we do have those two signs at both 2910 and inside the plant that are sort of the older signs. We will be replacing those over time, but this is our first rollout. So I just wanted to give you an update on the logo rollout. It looks pretty great, totally different, lots of good feedback thus far, and the staff I've had a chance to talk to. And we will be continuing. Also, our new website will be rolling out by the end of the month, and I think that's going to be it's going to be completely different. I think y'all will be very excited to see that. So that was it. I just wanted to show you that those things are rolling out, and you will be seeing more and more of that. So that is it for staff comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, next item, please.
Next item is item 8. That's matters from staff, general manager, and general counsel.
All right, floor is yours.
We actually don't have any comments, any additional. Thank you.
Claire?
I have nothing. Thank you, Mr. Former President.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, 9A, matters from members of the board, meeting reports.
All right, let's start with Director Weiner.
I attended the mayor's conference, and yeah, am I muted? Okay.
Nope.
I attended the mayor's conference there was an interesting use of Twitter to influence young people to cooperate with health recommendations from the county regarding COVID. Stipend positions were offered to local teens and young adults to become influencers on social behavior regarding the pandemic. The only requirement was they had a lot of followers. They each worked on their own campaigns and put them out through their social media accounts. I attended the Richmond Bay Area Horizontal Levy Group, and there was very interesting discussion on community involvement, the what, when, how, who, and how much the community should be involved was discussed, and it was eye-opening and very informative.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Stanley?
I attended both of those meetings and echo what Director Weiner just said. I do have a question for Claire, I guess. I don't have to do the ceremonial swearing in, do I? Because I've already been sworn in.
That's correct. You're officially sworn in if you've taken the oath, officially or ceremonial.
Okay, so there is a form that I was supposed to sign that I still haven't gotten 2.5 weeks later. Does anyone have an idea of when that was going to show up?
Yeah, Director Stanley, will you be home in the morning?
I am always home. It's just whether or not I'm downstairs and dressed. So,
all right, so the form will be put over your gate in the front tomorrow after 10 a.m., so look for it. Sign it, and then email me back after you're done signing it. Leave it in front so I can have access to it. And then after that, that's my last official act as president. So from here on in, you'll have to confer with our new president, Sutter. Thank you. I have nothing to report. I do, but the hour is late. We have other things we need to attend to. Vice President Cepeda?
Nothing to report. I've attended meetings, but nothing to report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And President Sutter?
I also attended the same meetings as well as Pioneers, but I can write it up and talk to you guys about it. I will send General Manager. I'm not sure if anyone attended the special districts program on COVID, the new COVID restrictions and laws, but I can send you my notes and the slide decks. That was it.
Okay, thank you, President Sutter. Next item, please.
Next item, 9B, good of the order.
Okay. Vice President Cepeda?
Yeah, sorry, I moved my cursor too fast. Former President, if I may, I have a note that I wrote to the WCW employees, if I may read it really quickly.
Sure.
And I want to say to all of our employees, hope this message finds you and your loved ones well. As we near the end of 2020, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for everything you are doing for our agency. I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a challenging year for all. Your resilience, determination, and hard work, especially in this past year, has not gone unnoticed. You have truly shown how this agency is ready for anything. While working and supporting each other through challenges and uncertainty, you continue to rise above and provide outstanding service to our community. Each of you have demonstrated remarkable resilience that has contributed to the collective strength of our agency. It is a great honor to be able to serve our community alongside each of you. You have my commitment that I will strive to continue making this agency the best it can be, an inclusive, safe, and welcoming place to work while providing outstanding service to our customers. As we get ready to go into this holiday season, I want to wish you and your loved ones good health and prosperity, and I look forward to continuing to work together for our agency and community. Thank you. And if I may ask if our if I know that not all the employees sometimes join this meeting because they probably are asleep at this time, but maybe if our general manager might be able to forward it along, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, VP Cepeda. Director Weiner.
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Director Stanley.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing either, except to echo VP Cepeda's comments. I think they were all well justified, and we thank you all for your service. And finally, President Sutter.
Beautiful, Vice President Zepeda. And I just want to bring to our attention that on the 19th, we have a very special anniversary coming up for the district. 1921. It's the district's anniversary.
Wow, that's excellent.
One more year, and we will be ready to celebrate our 100th. And we all agreed that starting in January, we will start working towards our 100th anniversary. So I want to remind us that now we would start working towards that. And I know Director Stanley had some really big ideas about this, but we will all start working towards that 100 year for next year.
That would be great.
I just wanted to remind us all that out of all the stuff that's happening, we can end the year knowing that we're at year 99. So, busy. That was the only thing, and I think that's a good of the order.
That's a great thing. Thank you very much for that, President Sutter. Next item, please.
Next item, 9C, future agenda items.
All right, let's start off with Director Weiner. Anything?
Nothing at this time.
All right. VP Cepeda, anything?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
All right, Director Stanley.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing as well. President Sutter?
Planning for the 100.
All right, there you go. All right, well, next item, please.
Next item, agenda item 10, closed session. 10A is public comments on closed session items. At this time, we do not have, and I did not receive any public comments for closed session items.
Okay, so let's move on.
Next item, 10B, closed session, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957B1.
All right, so I guess we're going into closed session. Who needs
So,
this?
on the call will remain Justin Lovell, Andrew Clow, and then Charlie Howard will be joining us from RGS, as well as General Counsel.
Okay.
Okay.
We also have, I'm sorry, we also have a non-video attendee, I believe, who can remain in closed session.
There is one under as a panelist.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Who's taking over the reins now that Brenda's leaving us?
Do you want me to do it, Miss Brenda?
So we do. I'm sorry. We do need Michael Savannah and Aaron Weiner off the call.
Okay.
I will do that before I hand it over.
Here.
Yes, she's gonna push me over as host, correct?
Yes. Let me just remove the attendees if they haven't removed themselves yet.
Yeah.
Okay, Claire, and you said to leave the attendee that was moved up as a panelist?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think we, let's see here. I think that's everyone. So I will remove myself now, and I will make President Sedith the host.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like Justin is the host. Oh, you're gonna move him. You're gonna move him.
I could stay as a host if needed.
Okay, you can do it then. Just as long as you're gonna
I'll
lock
be here.
it. Okay, good. So you can lock it. I don't have to do it.
Yep.
Are we going to be able to? Are we going to be able to hear from Dean? I don't see any kind of microphone in his square.
Yeah, Dean will be heard at the
This is
appropriate
Dean. Can
time.
you hear me?
Yes.
Dean's on.
Yes.
Mr. President, point of order, are we going to continue recording, and also can we lock the meeting so nobody else comes in?
Okay.
Yeah, Justin will be locking you. Please make sure you let Miss
Yeah, I can.
22:30 we end closed session.
Yeah. So we just ended. We're back in open session and ask the attorney to give us a brief report if there's anything to report out.
There were no decisions made by the board in closed session that require a report out under the Brown Act.
All right, so I guess we'll adjourn to a later time to be determined by the board clerk who will be polling the board for their availability as well as staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
So 22:31 we end for Miss Brenda. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you.